When Superman gets drawn into conflicts at home and abroad, his actions are questioned, giving tech billionaire Lex Luthor the opportunity to get the Man of Steel out of the way for good. Will intrepid reporter Lois Lane and Superman's four-legged companion Krypto be able to help him before it's too late? Superman is directed by James Gunn and stars David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Hoult, and many more. So, Jeffrey, what do you think about Superman?
Interestingly, I have very little attachment to Superman. I would say that I have a modest attachment to James Gunn in the MCU world. If my issue with the MCU in general is that the films are too homogenous and they look like carbon copies of one another, or they're too similar in some way. I think for more than a decade, James Gunn was a breath of fresh air in the MCU, and I can't imagine that was an easy thing. So I always admired his voice within the MCU. I thought that he had a very original, not only aesthetic, but a very original voice and sense of humor and control of tone. Guardians of the Galaxy movies came out in some really destructive eras of the MCU, or some dark eras. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was the last MCU movie that I really liked. And interestingly enough, I've actually never seen Richard Donner's original Superman, so I can't tell you if that film is any good or not. I suspect it's good because everybody tells me it is, but I was just never that attracted to this person as a character. To some degree, even though I haven't thought about it this deeply, I've always admired that monologue in Kill Bill Volume 2 where he talks about how Superman is so unrelatable because of his like various qualities. And one of the reasons that I like this Superman is because this Superman is relatable, perhaps for the first time. Obviously, I don't have the experience to tell you that if this was a quintessential film and this is quintessentially Superman, or if this is very true to the comics, because I just don't have much of a grasp on that. But I can tell you with the onslaught of superhero movies that we've sat through for the past 20 years, this feels like it has its own character. It feels like it has a distinctive visual style. It has some genuine wit, and it's really cool, and it has a lot of heart. And I don't think that there's more that you should expect from movies like that. So I think it did what it set out to do quite well. I don't want to turn this into like an MCU bash fest, but because DCU, or whatever this is called now, and MCU are the two leading forces of superhero movies that dominate so much of the box office, I do feel like they invite comparison to one another. And I did really vastly prefer this to the last few MCU movies. This was just punchy and really fun. And I know that's a subjective thing to say, but it just felt that way to me. And I know this movie is not without its issues. It's certainly overstuffed. It takes on way too much, but so much of the superhero output lately has felt so flat and so lifeless to me that it was just really nice to see something that felt like pure entertainment, that was full of heart and comedy. I don't want to say genuine character development because it's actually really lacking, but genuine character and genuine caricature. I thought that all of that was really well done in this film.
I agree. I agree with everything you said about James Gunn. I think one of my favorite things about him is this really weird humor that he has. He has this great ability to blend these very bizarre moments, such as that dance battle that happens at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, how that's used as like a funny distraction during this really serious moment of this destruction, the possible destruction of this entire planet. So I really like how he pairs these very odd moments with these very endearing and heartfelt moments, such as around themes of friendship and found family. And this was something about James Gunn that actually worried me a little bit when it comes to Superman, because Superman is a character that is so much more grounded in the real world than so many of the superhero movies that James Gunn has had his hands in, whether it's Suicide Squad or Guardians of the Galaxy. The characters in those films naturally lend themselves so wild to this wild humor because their existence in itself is so bizarre to begin with. It's easy to make jokes around, Rocket being this raccoon, this talking raccoon, because he is this amorphous idea of just a talking raccoon. He doesn't exist in our world. Like Drax, like Groot, these are examples of characters that exist in a way that's so disconnected from our actual reality. Where Superman, on the other hand, like I was saying, even though he's from another planet, he always comes across as being more connected to our real world. Much like Batman, the characters he is surrounded by and the situations he finds himself in have often been tied more closely to this grounded reality that we're also familiar with. And that's something I've experienced through the original Superman films, as well as like I watched Smallville. I've just always felt that way about Superman. And this was actually one of the things I disliked so much about Snyder's iteration of these characters, because I feel like they were being plucked from, in particular Batman and Superman, they were being plucked from this grounded reality that we all come to know through multiple films and TV shows, and really dropped them into this cosmic sort of reality with beings and enemies that I don't think we could really relate to or recognize, or we were guided to accept. Like the MCU, at least, did this really good job of building these cosmic characters into this earthly, universe. For all that you can say negatively about the MCU and how connective it is, it really did a great job of building the introduction of these cosmic characters and fitting them into our like earthly heroes, with the Avengers.
Well, there is a guy in this movie that can turn himself into any substance. So
Yes.
I don't know like how grounded it is,
No,
but
I'm not saying it's grounded yet.
yeah. Oh,
I'm about to
okay.
get to that.
Oh,
I'm saying
okay.
these are
This
the
is a
things
wind up.
yes,
I see.
these are the things I always loved about Superman movies and TV shows, and the character himself is that he's so grounded in our earthly reality. So you could kind of relate and connect with him a little bit closer than you can with these cosmic characters.
I wish I could turn myself into acid sometimes.
So with these Snyder films, I felt like these elements, these tonal elements, were such a shift and a diversion from what we had seen in the past. It felt almost like farcical or unserious to me. So as I said, I was going into this movie very concerned because I saw the trailer and I just saw how many weird characters that were going to be in this film, just flying through the sky, as you had mentioned. We have like Green Lantern, we have Mr. Fantastic, and they're all doing weird shit. And so yes, that made me very concerned. I was concerned about the attention that was going to be spent on Superman's character, like with all these other characters, that the attention would be taken away from him and maybe a story about him. And I was afraid that these farcical elements would again seem out of place. But with that said, I'm pleased to say that it actually worked very well in this film for me. I think James Gunn really nailed the blending of all these tones that I was talking about that he is so well known for. But I think he also muted it slightly because of the grounded nature of Superman's character. I thought this film was funny. I thought it was endearing and charming. I thought it had a lot of heart. I felt like it was a complete crowd pleaser. Like our audience totally dug this movie. They were just having a great time with it. Two notable scenes that I felt like really fit into this vibe. One where Lois Lane is, I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to talk about spoilers, but she's in this bubble of sorts and she's being protected, but there's this fight sequence that's happening around her.
Yeah, this is a great scene. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. But it just speaks to, there's some really great action sequences in this movie that were so crowd pleasing. And so that was one of them. And then there's another one where Superman's like battling towards the end and he arises from this smoke. There was these cinematic moments that really connected with me that I haven't felt since probably Spider-Man No Way Home.
I agree with you, especially about those scenes. Like a couple things about what you said. So number one, I didn't like either trailer for this movie that I saw. So I was really surprised how much I liked the movie. And I don't think the trailer is totally representative of the movie. So if you didn't like the trailer, I would still give the movie a shot, even if it's on streaming sometime down the line. And secondly, I just want to come out of the closet and say that I hate the Zack Snyder movies. You could come at me. I'm hard on the MCU. I will watch 45 MCU movies before I watch that Snyder cut again. Just no. Just no. Anyway, I'm so in on this. Compared to Snyder, please keep that in here. Come at me. The scene you were talking about, this is actually a good lead into, I think, CGI in general. And I'm not one to usually comment on this, but I thought the CGI in this movie looked really, really good. That's a difficult sequence from a CGI perspective because there's a lot of movement. Like there's action scenes where spheres are flying and dogs are flying and saws are flying, and it's all orchestrated ornately in this really fun way that these things are coming so close to people's faces, but it's an unbroken shot, so to speak. I just thought the general aesthetic and the character of the CGI felt really seamless to me. It kind of felt like the hallway scene in Guardians 3, but just on steroids over and over. And I really liked all of it. I thought that they did a really good job. In a lot of Marvel movies, it's not the visual effects artist's fault because they're just not given time to work on these films. But sometimes I'm really shocked at like the finished product they put out. But when you can actually work on CGI for a long time, it can really look good. And I thought that this film was masterful in that way, actually.
Yeah, just to point out that the visual effects were done by ILM, Lucasfilm's visual effects department, which is now owned by Disney. So it's kind of curious or just interesting that Warner Brothers would go with a Disney property to do the visual effects in this movie. But in that regard, I did feel very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque when it came to the visual effects in this film. So I think it just speaks to probably a lot of the same people that worked on those films. Anyways, I want to go back a little bit to the beginning of this movie and tap into what you were talking about earlier with Snyder's movies and why this was so different. One of the things I really liked about this movie is that we're pretty much thrown into it like right from the very beginning. This movie starts out with like some text on screen 30 years ago to 3 years ago to 3 months ago or something like that, and it just gets closer and closer to the present. And I really liked this choice because so many of the population's already so familiar with Superman. We're so familiar with the character of Lex Luthor, et cetera, Lois Lane. They are kind of characters in comic book and superhero movie history. And so it's just like, I don't need to bore you with that whole thing that every other Superman iteration has done already, which is showing you how Superman arrived to Earth and how he was taken in in Smallville, and he was raised by these two parents. But one of the things that goes into is David Corenswet as Superman. I thought he was a fantastic Superman. I thought he had that small town, rural charm. It really pointed directly to his upbringing. Like, you felt like he was raised by these two Midwestern parents. He's very empathetic. I mean, this is the dude that literally in the movie just saves a squirrel.
Yeah, he was raised right.
Yeah.
Well, it's also because James Gunn has this like obsession with saving with animals.
Yes,
Anyway.
yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that really speaks to that. And like Rocket. Oh,
Yeah, Rocket, the lady with the turtles.
for Superman's character, he's empathetic. He wants to save everybody and everything. He wants to take care of the planet. That's what he feels like he was brought here to do.
I'm not knocking him for doing this, but it's a really easy way to get emotional stakes in a situation.
That is
have
very
an
true.
animal in trouble.
Yeah, that is true. The funny thing on the other side of this is that he's so empathetic almost to a fault. There's this running joke throughout the movie where Lois Lane like talks about how he just trusts anybody, and then they consistently come across characters who know his real identity. In the Snyder films, we see Superman as being almost like more gritty and more hard, with like this harder exterior. And I just felt like that wasn't like a resemblance of his upbringing. I felt like it just deviated his character too far from who he was as a person.
Speaking of his upbringing, actually, I also really like that the film skips the origin story and plunges you right into the action, because I don't think we need the origin story. But there are certain concessions that come with that, and I would say the concession that comes with that, in addition to this movie just being generally overstuffed and having too much going on, I think you don't get as much character development and emotional stakes as you could, especially on the character level. So, for instance, we spend some time, a very little amount of time, on his family farm later in the film, and it might be, I don't know, 5 minutes in total, and the only setup to that is a quick phone conversation he has with his parents prior to that, and I really could have used the film to just like let out a breath for a minute, maybe spend a little more time in the farmhouse, get to know him a little bit more, like not a lot more, but maybe 5 minutes more. And I think that the really emotional scene between his father and Superman, which I really liked, could have had far more emotional impact if we had just a little bit more prior to it. And I think that's generally a problem with this movie, is it actually reminds me of J.J. Abrams in that way. It never stops to breathe. It's just always on to the next thing. And for the most part, that makes a really entertaining movie, but it may not make a lasting emotional one.
That's a problem I had with the movie as well. And it's something that's kind of odd because he does it so well in the Guardians movies.
Yeah.
All these characters.
I think it just takes on too much.
Guardians of the Galaxy has so many different characters. Maybe it's just like more movies and more opportunities.
There's a lot of subplots in this movie.
Yeah.
Wars between...
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot going on. Yeah, there's just a lot. There's universes, Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
There's riffs. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
But going from there, I want to talk about Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, because I thought she was also very good. Everybody in this movie is very good in that role.
They're all great.
And
yeah,
they all
really.
mesh really well. It's a really good group of casting here. And so I love how direct and clear she is as a character. Somebody that's going to take charge. She literally will put herself in harm's way and get herself involved in these situations, even if she doesn't possess like a lot of the superpowers that these other people around her do. She's not going to hesitate to get into the fray, much like all these superhero people won't hesitate. They'll just go in and do it. And so I really love that about her character. It was a really powerful performance, I think, in character. But like you were saying, we don't really get much as to her and what makes her tick. We get some little scenes with her and Superman and the problem they're having together as a couple, but we're not really getting much about her.
I don't even know why Lex Luthor is like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, he's just like that. He just sucks. To some degree, like, I'm happy that the film spared us a tragic backstory and he has trauma and whatever else, but it probably could have used some sort of something in there. But I agree with what you were saying before, that there's so many characters in this film that it's able to add so much color throughout it. Like, if I take any issue with the film or the film's casting or characters, I think it would probably be in like Lex Luthor's little booth thing that he has, because all of those people are so unfathomably evil for no reason.
Yeah.
I guess if you listen to them, they kind of just sound like Republican lawmakers, so it's really not that crazy. But so many of the characters are so funny. So I mentioned the guy who can turn, I don't remember his name, but he can turn himself into any different substance. So he can turn himself into fire, acid.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he was great. He had great emotional stakes. He brought a welcome, real pathos to the film that I really liked. There was the Green Lantern character that becomes a little too obsessed with the name of the group, and that is like a continually mining for humor. There's the character of the reporter who's kind of having a one-sided relationship because he wants to use someone for information for the paper. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that is really funny and is milked for great humor throughout the film, and that really helps you ignore a lot of the shortcomings.
I completely agree. You were talking about Lex Luthor. He was played by Nicholas Hoult in the movie. I think his character could have used some more. It was like a positive and negative for me because I feel like I could have used more backstory from him, but also he played the role so well.
He's really good.
Yeah.
He was just so manic.
Yeah. He's so manic. He plays like this completely insecure man that's also so sure of himself. So he comes across with this like strongman persona.
He does have the relentless insecurity that Elon Musk has. It just like comes through in his energy.
So I want to talk a little bit about some culturally relevant moments that happened in the film that I thought were both very funny and sometimes very endearing and sometimes very serious. At one point, we pass all these monkeys that are on their computers and they're kind of spamming as bots to drive opinion online. And I thought that was just so funny and so realistic to what's happening in the world right now. You had mentioned coming out of the theater that James Gunn was probably referring a little bit about to these Snyder trolls.
Yeah,
taking over.
I feel like it can't not be at least a little related. I know that that's a major part of our life nowadays, this whole like bot hate system, but still.
But it speaks to that. It speaks to its effect in the political world and just how our politics are being shaped by so many bots online.
I bet they're all tweeting about The Last Jedi.
Probably. Yes. Yeah, probably. But then at the same time, we have these kind of more serious moments. It's kind of like funny and serious, but in the form of this dictator that runs this country that's trying to take over another country. He just like really wants to invade this other land and he's pretending like he has no other choice. It's like so Putin coded. It's like so Netanyahu coded. It's like, well, they're doing this, so we have to go in there.
I loved this actor, by the way. He was just so like dumb Scandinavian evil guy. I don't know. And also I kept wondering where I recognized him from, and it's from this amazing movie Pusher 3, which is the third movie in a trilogy directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. Great movie. And it literally dawned on me earlier today that he was great in that movie, and he's also awesome in this movie.
The main point I really had there was just like, I like that it took Superman and made a Superman movie that had a little bit more to say about a lot of these things. The movie is really good at being political without being political because it focuses on humanity. It points so well to these opportunistic jerks without directly replicating like an Elon Musk or Donald Trump to like make fun of them so directly. I think the reason that's important is it guides us to maybe the qualities that we should look for in our leaders. So it leads with that empathy and it leads for more the qualities instead of like these outright comparisons to figures we already know.
Yeah, James Gunn loves an underdog, and I think that a lot of the times he's called like a very liberal or political filmmaker because he tends to side with the marginalized. It's one of those things that everything is political in some way, and I don't think this is an outright political film, but I think it's a film that aligns itself with people who are marginalized or who are underprivileged in some way. And again, he loves the underdog. But that's what I love about his approach is he never forgets the human element. That's one of the reasons we get a more relatable human Superman here, and one that focuses a lot more on the human or the man part than the super part. So I think that's just part of his repertoire, and I really respect him for that. Okay, so we're going to talk about spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, this isn't like a huge spoiler. There's just a couple jokes I want to reference because they were really great, but you have to see the movie in order to hear this if you don't want to be spoiled. So anyways, we're going to go on to spoilers. I really love James Gunn's gags, and one of my favorite gags that I think he's ever done is this Supergirl cameo right towards the end of the movie. And we found out that it's a setup for Supergirl, which is coming out next year apparently, but she was away just getting drunk on planets because their metabolism, it doesn't work correctly on Earth, so she can't get drunk because her metabolism is so good. So she had to go to other planets with different types of suns so that she could get wasted. I just thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And I thought it was great because when you come to movies like this, you want cameos, right? There's also, is his name Peacemaker?
Yeah. Peacemaker.
There's also
That's right.
There's also a quick Peacemaker cameo, and I thought both of these were really well done because he integrated it into the movie as a joke.
Yeah.
So it's like he's having his cake and eating it too. He's giving you your cameo, but he's also laughing about the cameo at the same time. I thought that was a perfect way to do it.
And the audience, absolutely, that was some of the biggest
They lost
roars in the theater. Yes.
Yeah, they lost their mind. It was great.
Another great moment that I thought really worked really well was when Superman and Lois Lane are back in their apartment and they're having a conversation and there's this battle going outside the window with this big blob, and it's just like they're trying to have like a serious
Yes.
conversation.
That was great. And then he has the baseball, the Green Lantern baseball bat thing. That was awesome.
Oh my gosh, there was also the moment where towards the end they're like stopping the war from happening, and Green Lantern is doing all these things to get rid of the tanks, and all these middle fingers are just popping up.
Oh
from
yeah,
the
they're just like
tanks.
pumping up and
Yeah.
slapping people. That was great too. So you ready to go to grades?
I am ready to go to grades. I give this film an A minus. What?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's great.
Okay. I really, really enjoyed it.
Cool.
I don't think I enjoyed it to the lengths of Superman No Way Home. I don't think I enjoyed it to the lengths of maybe like Infinity War or Endgame, examples of films like that.
You mean Spider-Man No Way Home? I'm just
Yeah,
you don't
what'd
need
I
to start
say?
over. You said Superman No Way Home.
Oh, sorry.
All good.
There's this great attention to the theme of identity in this film, thinking you came here with a certain purpose and then learning it's for something else. But then you come to realize that, no, you were on the right path all along. It's actually very Guardians of the Galaxy 2 coded, I thought. We have Peter Quill. He's having this crisis of identity, dealing with this cosmic father who wants something different for him than he expected his parents would want from him. Gives him this identity crisis, but then he learns through his found family that he's on the right path and he's doing things the way he wants to, and that's completely fine. So I actually found a lot of similarities between these two characters in these two films. I just really enjoyed it. I need to point out, because we haven't pointed out this much, how much I love Crypto in the movie. I thought
Crypto.
he was absolutely hilarious. He was
Love
so
Crypto.
great at playing the role of like a golden retriever who's just like gets into all this mess in your house and just like tears up your cushions, but you just can't help from loving so much.
I read an article today about how James Gunn adopted a rescue dog in 2022 and how he based that Crypto on that dog. I was like,
That's really sweet. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was really cute. There's pictures of his dog on his Instagram if you want to go look.
I will definitely go look after this review.
I'm going to give the movie a B. I had a great time. This really made me think about how I give out grades, which is funny because there are times that I feel like I give a really begrudging B minus where I'm just like railing and just like really
I'm
angry the whole time.
It's a B.
It really has like I genuinely try to. I know this sounds like I'm taking it far too seriously, and maybe I am, but I genuinely try to separate some sort of objective quality and how much I enjoy. Like there could be movies that I really really enjoyed that are like D+ movies. Thunderbolts is a B- movie in my opinion, but I would never ever watch it again. It was like nails on a chalkboard to me. But I would watch this again till the end of time, and they're only like a grade apart in my mind. So it's really weird. But anyway, I give this a B just because I think it's kind of flawed, especially with being overstuffed. It left some things to be desired, but I think it is just a massive entertainment as far as a mega budget superhero movie goes. Like this is really great. Like you should go out and see this. And I just thought it had a ton of heart and a ton of humor. And I'm really interested to see what the DC does next, or DCU, or whatever it's called now.
DCU.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what they do next because we were talking about this on the car ride home. James Gunn is such a unique voice that I don't want now every DC movie to be James Gunnified, but if he is a creative force that's empowering other people to have their own original voices, I think that could be a really cool thing to tie together. So I'm just interested to see how this goes, but I think this is a good start.
All right, so that's our review of Superman. Superman is now in theaters, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Let us know in the comments, what did you think about this movie? As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.